Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And in this video, I'm doing a deep dive, this time on the artist Weird Al Yankovic. I already did a top 10 on my channel, live stream, and so I really wanted to do one of these deep dives on him since I already did the top 10 and really get into who Weird Al Yankovic is, where he came from, what are the big albums and songs and his career, and also my thoughts on him in general. And I'm a big fan of his, so kind of talk about where I come from anyway. So stay tuned to see all that here on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello everybody, hope everybody's doing well here on a Monday afternoon. Here to do another deep dive, which I've done a couple. I started doing this a little while ago. I've done one on Tom Petty and the Tom Petty Heartbreakers. I've done one on ELO. Now I'm doing Weird Al Yankovic. Like I said, I did a live stream some months ago doing a top 10 favorite Weird Al Yankovic songs. I did this with Adam from What the Gym and Briar from Briar's Music Showcase came on my channel. And so I have that on the playlist under top 10s. So every time I do a deep dive, I do a top 10 favorite songs from that artist as well. So I have that there. Anyway, so check that out if you want to see what our top 10s were. We had a good time talking about Weird Al Yankovic. Weird Al Yankovic, I've always been a huge fan of Weird Al Yankovic. I feel like since I was pretty young. Obviously, he's such a unique artist. He took a kind of I feel like a small genre of music, novelty songs, comedy parody songs, and really made it his own and really became the face of it, I guess you could say. He really blew up bigger than any other artist has, doing really more just comedic songs. And obviously, he's big on the song parodies. And I don't know that he's the first one to do it, but he definitely was the one who made it really big and popular. And part of it is his whole persona. Of course, he has a great name, Weird Al Yankovic, really fun name to say. And when he came out with the curly hair and the mustache, and he's very goofy and kind of has a physical comedic way about him when he performs. And of course, and then when he came probably right at the perfect time for MTV, and music videos started to become popular, and he's done such a great job with his music videos. And they're some of the best music videos we're able to see, obviously very hilarious music videos. And so he really used that to help his popularity. And there's just nobody like Weird Al Yankovic. He's such a very unique artist. There's other people that have done, I think, comedy songs and stuff like that. But no one's as big as him. I mean, he's the absolute biggest. He's in his own tier when it comes to that type of song genre. Nobody comes close to what Weird Al Yankovic has done in his career, and he's been around for quite a long time, since the early 80s. So I mean, you're talking about, since I was born, basically. You're talking about 40 years of music anyway. So he's been around the business a long time. Yeah, so and I think I knew about him when I was really young. I was aware that there's this, I think mostly because of the image, because you see Weird Al Yankovic, he's very noticeable, the way he dresses and looks and all that. And I knew about Eat It. I kind of remember seeing Eat It as a kid and thinking that was pretty funny. And I'm Fat, I think the name of the song is also was a big video at the time when I was a kid. And was aware of that, so I was aware of it. I really didn't become a big fan till sometime in the 90s. I had a friend named Aaron Weeby, was my best friend that I hung out with, and he was also a Weird Al Yankovic fan, and he knew more about Weird Al than I did. And he went and bought Bad Hair Day on CD, and that to me was the first album that I listened to Weird Al, and kind of really was where I started becoming a big fan of his. And it was through my friend Aaron, who knew a lot more about Weird Al Yankovic, and he would play me songs, and he played me Weird Al songs and stuff, and I would just be man, I just really enjoyed it. Bad Hair Day had the Amish Paradise song, which just was one of the biggest songs of his career, one of my all-time favorites. Of course, listening to that, of course, coming off of Gangster's Paradise, which I used to listen to that on the radio too, so I remember being a big fan of Gangster's Paradise, and then Amish Paradise was the perfect parody to do for that song. Such a great take at it. Anyway, so that's where I kind of started becoming a fan. And after that, he was one of the biggest artists for me as a kid. I was somewhat obsessed with Weird Al Yankovic. Every time he came out with a new CD, I had to get it. So I started buying his stuff at that point and listened to it and just really loving everything he was doing. Uh, yeah, I was always a big fan of his. Still to this day, I enjoy listening to his stuff. He doesn't make it's been a while since he made his last album. He's not as prolific as an album maker as he used to be. But I still hope he comes up with some more music at some point. Anyway, so yeah, so that's my kind of history with Weird Al. But going into Weird Al Yankovic, he was born in 1959. He's from Linwood, California, is where he kind of grew up. Which I don't know much about California. I have a friend, Briar, who's from California. I don't know if he can tell me anything about Linwood, if he knows anything about that, but that's where he grew up. When he was a kid, there was a traveling accordion salesman, evidently, at the time. Used to have more salesmen that traveled like that, I think, back in the day. And I think he had a choice between like accordion or guitar, and the parents decided that he should play the accordion, which, of course, Weird Al was like, sometimes like, well, I would have been cooler if I learned the guitar, but obviously learning the accordion, he used that to great effect and became, maybe the most famous accordion player there ever is. I don't know too many great accordion players, but I think of Weird Al in that sense. Anyway, so that's cool. He got an accordion at a young age, learned it. I mean, really become really good at it. So he definitely had a talent for music and playing and all that. Obviously, he had a really good talent of listening to music and playing it on his accordion, which I've never played it, don't know. It looks like a hard instrument to play. I'm just marveled at anybody that plays it. Like how do you do that with both hands and you have to move it? It's pretty cool. But that's where he kind of first started learning music at a pretty young age. He became a big fan of the Dr. Demento show. Was a big radio show that played novelty funny songs. And I even used to listen to Dr. Demento when I was a kid. I remember, I want to say one of the oldie stations I used to listen to. There would be like a certain night, a certain time period, like there was a block where they would have Dr. Demento show on. And I don't know if it was live or if it was just like old recordings of the Dr. Demento show. I don't know much about that, but I remember used to look forward to the Dr. Demento night, which was like maybe a Friday night or something, and being at home and being like, oh, I'm going to listen to the Dr. Demento show on the radio, and really enjoying all the funny songs on there. Obviously, Weird Al came off of kind of after that. He listened to Dr. Demento show, was really enjoying what he's hearing. So at age 16, in 1976, he decided to start writing his own novelty parody songs and submitting them to Dr. Demento. I think the first one he wrote was a song about his dad's car, which was, I think, a Belvedere or something like that was the name of the car. So he wrote a song about the car, if I remember right, and that was like his first song he wrote. And he submitted to Dr. Demento, and Dr. Demento put it on the air. Not necessarily like a great song, but I mean, still, I think Dr. Demento was pretty impressed by this 16-year-old and his ability to come up with this stuff anyway. So that's where he kind of got a start, and he kept writing more songs and submitting them to the Dr. Demento show. Dr. Demento kept putting him on. So obviously, he almost got his big start with that Dr. Demento show at a young age, producing those songs and kind of not getting any kind of deal yet. He was too young, but definitely getting his foot in the door at that time. He then graduated from high school, went to a college called Cali Polytech, and he went to be an architecture major. I don't know how much he figured he would, be in architecture. I guess, I'm sure he didn't think he'd make a living off of writing comedy songs or whatnot. But while he was at college, he was from what I've read and heard from him, interesting because he seems like a very outgoing, fun person to be with. But it seems like he was somewhat of an outsider and in the college, and maybe didn't make as many friends as you would think. And so people kind of called him Weird Al because he was just a little off, I guess, compared to everybody else. And so he kind of took that name, of course, and made it famous. And so that's where you get the Weird Al, is from college being called that, and kind of took it as a moniker for his character that he kind of creates. in some sense. Anyways, but while he was in college, he also became a disc jockey, and got to use his funny personality, I think, talking to people on air and, talking about songs and stuff like that. And definitely got into music that way as well. But anyway, from there, he still was recording music, still enjoying doing that. He came out with a single called My Bologna. It was the first single he kind of came up with. And obviously there was a famous song called My Sharona. He took the song from that and made it about Bologna, My Bologna. And he put it out, and it actually got some airtime. And even the band that did Sharona, My Sharona, even heard it and thought it was funny and liked it. And so it's funny how he got that out. It kind of got some traction that way. Enough that Capitol Records actually got the single and released it. And it got actually a really good response on the radio. And to the point that Capitol Records actually gave him a record deal. So really cool how he kind of came from nothing. I mean, he was just had accordion. I mean, I think he just did the song in the bathroom because the bathroom had good acoustics. He just played the song and sang it by himself on the accordion, and that was enough to eventually get him a record deal. And so that's pretty cool. He had his first album in 1982. It's a self-titled album, Weird Al Yankovic. So like I said, that's about 41 years ago now. Came out with his first album. Didn't do incredibly well, but he still had some songs like Rocky Road, I think, came out of that. And so there's some stuff, eventually like another one, Rides a Bus, I know was one of his early kind of songs. He then met, at that point, of course, when he did his album, he got some band members. I don't think I wrote them down, but I think one name is like Barry Schwartz. I think maybe is one of the guys' names. That might be a football player. I don't know. But he got some guys who become his band members for the rest of his career. Drummer and guitar player and all the bass player, I think, that have toured with him since. And in fact, when he did another one, Rides the Bus, the drummer, I think said, "Hey, I can, hit the accordion case with my hand and make like a drum beat to help out with the song." And that's kind of how he got his drummer, which is kind of interesting. Like, so I don't think he was looking for a drummer necessarily, but somebody said, "Hey, I can hit the accordion case like a drum." And there's a famous footage you can see of him singing the song live with his drummer just pounding on the accordion case. So he became his drummer for like the rest of his career. So stuff like that happened, and definitely helped elevate his music, obviously. And they're all really good musicians on their own, to be able to take these songs that are famous and basically copy them perfectly, both for the albums and for live tours, which I've seen Weird Al once live a while back. I want to say around 2008, 2009. I went with my sister and her boyfriend or husband at the time, I forget, her boyfriend at the time, who's now her husband. And we got to see that in Wichita at the Cotillion. And it was a great concert. Of course, definitely one of the highlight concerts I've ever been to. He's a great performer live. And he has so many hit songs. So they're all great, to listen to. I definitely recommend, I'd love to see him live again someday. Definitely recommend seeing him live. One of the best live performances, I would say. Lots of costume changes and all that. His second album, Weird Al Yankovic in 3D, that came out in 1984, produced the biggest hit song that really kind of elevated him, I think, to being more well-known, and that is Eat It. Like I said, it went number 12 on the Billboard Top 100, so it was the first song that really charted high for him. And then also his music video for Eat It was huge on MTV at the time. It really kind of parodied Michael Jackson's Beat It music video as well. So he does a real good impression of Michael Jackson on there and a lot of funny stuff. But yeah, Eat It was really, to me, like the song that really put his name on the map. Like, oh, this is a guy that's, very unique, and he's doing something very interesting and getting a big fan base at this point. So I think that helped. In 1989, he was even given his own film called UHF. Interesting film. Not the best written. It does have some funny jokes, some parody moments from other movies, all that. Overall, it flopped pretty big, but I think it was going up against some really big movies. Like I think it was going up against like Batman or something, and some other movies that were really popular. But I would say not a great movie, but not terrible. It's got some good moments, like I said. But yeah, that definitely flopped at that time. Something interesting I didn't know is that Rick Derringer produced Weird Al's first 6 albums, which I know Rick Derringer, he was the lead singer for the McCoys, and they had a big hit song back in the '60s, "Hang On Sloopy," which is like one of my favorite songs. And he gone, I think, to have a solo career as well. Anyway, so I didn't know, but Rick Derringer was his producer, which I never knew before. In 1992, though, there was a big change where Rick Derringer left and Al Yankovic took over. He really wanted to take over the producing part of the his albums. Anyway, so yeah, so he took over and was producing his albums. Starting off with The Deep End was kind of the first album that really was kind of changed from Rick Derringer to Weird Al taking charge. In my opinion, that's when Weird Al really got good. When I go back to his albums, I think his earlier albums are actually mostly weak. There's some, good songs like Eat It that are in there, of course, but I feel like he really got a lot better with Off the Deep End, which he had the Nirvana parody song, which the cover of Deep End it parodies Nirvana's Nevermind album, and it's got one of my favorite songs also on there. You Don't Love Me Anymore is a great song on there. But yeah, I think when I listen to his albums in chronological order, I think definitely the production value, everything gets a lot better with Off the Deep End, the writing and everything. I think he's really progressing as a writer and doing a lot better material. But yeah, Off the Deep End, it was a big hit, reached number 35. Wait a minute. It says it was a big hit, reaching number 35, and the album reached number 17. So I'm not sure why I wrote that, but anyways, it was one of his bigger albums at that time. And then, like I said, in 1996, he comes out with Bad Hair Day, which was his biggest album at the time. It was the first album, like I said, when I was like 14 years old. So I was, ready to get into high school. And Bad Hair Day really was a huge album for him, I think. Like I said, it went number 14 on the chart, so it did really well chart-wise. And then Homage Paradise went number 53 on the chart, so not big, but definitely, like I said, it's hard to chart songs that are parody songs from other famous songs. So he's not an artist that gets like, number 1 hits or something like that usually, but because it's such a kind of niche genre of music. But obviously, Homage Paradise, everybody knows Homage Paradise. It's one of the all-time greats. So that definitely, he was definitely getting bigger, I think, at this point. He was already kind of big, but each album he was making was getting bigger and bigger. His next album, which was the first album I actually bought, was Running with Scissors. I actually bought that on CD when I was younger. And this came out in 1998. And one of the biggest significance of this album is that he definitely changed his look from the short curly hair and the mustache and the glasses to he stopped wearing glasses, he shaved his mustache, and he grew his hair out long. And that's kind of the, still a little curly in there, but if you see Weird Al, that's what he looks like now with that look anyway. So that's what he kind of changed there. In 2006, he came out with Straight Outta Linwood, California is where he's from, coming off of, Straight Outta Compton, kind of a parody. And that's where he had his biggest song to date, and that was White and Nerdy. It was number 9, so it was a top 10 hit for him. And it's considered like his biggest charting song of all time. And just to say, if you look at my top 10 favorite songs, it's number 1 on my list. Absolutely hilarious song about being white and nerdy. Of course, look at me, I'm white and nerdy. So it really spoke to me growing up. Anyway, so yeah, absolutely amazing song. Great music video as well. His last album is called Mandatory Fun. Came out 2014. And actually was number 1. It's his first number 1 album that he's ever had. And it's the last one he's made so far. So it's been almost 10 years. I mean, it's 2023. So you're talking 9 years since his last. So it's maybe the biggest gap that he's ever had between albums. And I don't know if he'll ever make, maybe he won't make another album, because I think he can do a lot more with just doing digital, putting it on the internet maybe, and not doing like actual albums, but we'll see. I'd love to see him do more, because I'll listen to anything he puts out, basically. Overall, he sold more than 12 million records, and he's won 5 Grammy Awards and nominated 11 times. Of course, he gets, pretty much every time he comes out with an album, he gets nominated for Comedy Album of the Year. Or 16, he was nominated for 16, sorry. Eat It won Best Comedy Recording. Fat won Best Concept Music Video, so the music video got a Grammy. And then he won Best Comedy Album twice, which surprised me. I figured he won it tons of times. I figure almost every time he puts out an album, he wins Comedy Album. But he won for Poodle Hat and Mandatory Fun, won Comedy Album. So I'm surprised some of his other ones in the 90s that were really popular didn't win. But it's been some of his more later albums in the last 10, 15 years, whatever, that has won the Album of the Year, Comedy Album of the Year. He made 14 albums in total so far. Of course, starting from 1982 and ending in 2014 was his last album. And of course, he's still young enough, he can make more albums. I don't know if he's getting up to 60 maybe years old by now, but I'm sure he can still do it. For me, if I'd say, well, his top albums that really ranked high were Weird Al Yankovic and 3D went number 17 in the charts. Off the Deep End also went number 17 in the charts. Bad Hair Day went number 14 in the charts. Running the Scissors went number 16. Poodle Hat, number 17. Straight Outta Linwood, number 10. So here's some of the top 10 ones. Alpocalypse went number 9. And then his last one went number 1. It's the only one that goes number 1 is Mandatory Fun. But for me, I would say, I think you can go from Off the Deep End or Bad Hair Day from the mid-90s. Every album from then on are really great albums. Just my opinion is 80s albums aren't nearly as good. He has some good songs, but they're not very consistent. There's some real bad ones in there as well, and not as creative songs. But in my opinion, once you get to Bad Hair Day, they're really good albums. Like I said, Bad Hair Day, Running with Scissors were early favorites of mine. Then Poodle Hat, Straight Outta Linwood, Alpocalypse, Mandatory Fun, all have been excellent albums with a lot of great songs on there. I'd probably say Straight Outta Linwood and Alpocalypse are my 2 favorite albums from him, to be honest. Have a lot of great consistency there, a lot of multiple great songs. So yeah, so definitely check those out. You can't go wrong with any of those albums to start out if you want to get into Weird Al Yankovic. Yeah, in fact, Straight Outta Linwood's my favorite because it has White and Nerdy, my favorite song on there. Alpocalypse, number 2 on my list. And then Running with Scissors, I put at number 3. The big song in there was the American Pie parody from Star Wars. The Saga Begins. And Saga Begins, a very big song off of that album, but an album has a lot of really great songs on it. So definitely those are my top 3. But yeah, there's so many good ones you can go with. And yeah, definitely check Weird Al Yankovic out if you haven't. Such a funny performer, and the music is actually really good, and the production value is really good. He does a lot of studio work in there and does a lot of different sounds and stuff. And so, yeah, Weird Al, one of my favorite artists, really, still to this day. So, yeah, so that's my deep dive on Weird Al Yankovic. Please comment, what do you think? Are you a fan of Weird Al Yankovic? What's your favorite song or album? Love to read the comments. And just thank you to everybody for watching this video. Thank you for liking it, and thank you all the subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good day.